Going camping in winter can be an absolute drag. It's cold, it's often wet, and if people aren't used to camping in the cold, they can be damn right miserable to be around. But not for me. Winter is my favourite time of the year to go camping, and well, for a few reasons. One is that there's virtually no one else around. You've got the pick of the litter as far as campsites go. And two, well, you can do plenty about being cold, but you can't do much about being hot. And in this video I'm going to show you maybe 5 things that I think will definitely help if you want to go camping in the winter and your partner or someone else doesn't want to. I'll give you 5 things that are going to help you along the way. They say in a survival situation you need 3 things: shelter, food and water. But we're not talking about surviving here, we're talking about just being comfortable in the cold. Let's talk about shelter. With vehicle camping, 4-wheel drive camping, or etc, 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 there's many ways that we can do it. We can do it with tents, you can do it with swags on stretchers, camper trailers, rooftop tents, awnings with sleeping arrangements underneath it. There's many ways that you can do it, but there's a few key things that you want to be mindful of regardless of the way you camp. The first thing is insulation. Now, it doesn't matter what sort of camping that you have. I'll tell you, we did a quick camping trip with my son and daughter-in-law. We went into the horse float, they slept in the horse float and they froze their asses off. And that was because there was no insulation between the floor of the float and the mattress that they were sleeping on. So all the cold from the ground went straight up into the base of the horse float, went straight through the mattress and made them cold. If we put something underneath the mattress where they were sleeping on, it would have insulated them from the cold. And the same thing can go for swags and stretchers. If you've got a stretcher that's up off the ground, incredibly comfortable way to sleep. But if you've got no insulation between your sleeping bag and that stretcher in the cold, you're going to get cold. A good mattress in most of the swags that are available now is going to keep you pretty warm. Same thing can be said for what I've got going on in the rooftop tent on the camper trailer. There is an insulating layer between the floor of the rooftop tent and the mattress that I sleep on. And if you've watched this channel before, you also know that I've got a electric blanket up there, because there's nothing more important in my opinion than having a good night's sleep when you're camping. Because if you camp cold and you sleep cold, you're going to be just freaking miserable the whole time you're out. The second thing about sleeping is if you're going to use a sleeping bag, make sure it's a rated sleeping bag. Don't just go to Kmart, Target, any of those sorts of places and buy your kids like a Dora Explorer sleeping bag or Peppa Pig sleeping bag. Those things are just trash. They're not going to work well in the bush at all. They're more for sleeping over when you're sleeping inside people's houses. All sleeping bags that are worth their weight, they're going to be rated for a temperature, a low temperature. So get the most appropriate one for the situation that you're in. You don't want to be cold when you're sleeping. If you've already got your sleeping bag and everything sorted out and it's not quite the right one, you might be in an area where you go, it gets pretty chilly here in winter, but in the summer it's just too bloody hot to use that sleeping bag. Well, if you've got one that's in between the two, I would encourage you to carry a couple of garbage bags with you. Back in my younger days in the army only had one style of sleeping bag to go wherever you want. And you could be up in Cairns on one job and then go down to Puckapunyal on another job, and down there it's bloody freezing. And what I used to do was I'd put my feet into a garbage bag, you know, the green or black garbage liners, like the big ones. So you put your feet into that, hop into your sleeping bag, put another one over the top, all that insulating layers. I slept pretty damn toasty. It's cheap as, and it'll get you out of a bind. When it comes to your campfire, preparation is key. You need to act like a little bit of a Boy Scout. Your inclement weather may come in pretty quickly. You need to keep your wood dry, keep your wood prepared, and get everything ready for your fire before you start your fire. It doesn't really matter how many piles of wood you have. I would say a minimum of 3 to 4. Larger size wood that's going to burn all night. Next size down that you're going to use for cooking. Next size down again that's going to help get some good coals in there. Really small stuff, and then a heap of dry leaves, and that's going to really bring some heat into this thing. And obviously there are many firelighters around that's on the market all over the bloody place. You don't need to use firelighters. You can certainly light this thing, especially with all these dry leaves, but firelighters just make things so much easier. You can get the Zippo ones, which I really think are the duck's nuts. They're very good, but they're bloody expensive. Pretty much any firelight is going to work. The redhead ones, the sambar ones, all those things. What I would say though is avoid the all-natural ones. It's all well and good to feel like a good hug-a-tree greenie, but those things are almost fireproof. Almost every time I use them at home in the fireplace, they put the bloody fire out. I've actually ended up making my own firelighter I won't tell you what it's called. The YouTube algorithm really won't like what it's called.
I love
Now, let's say it's some fuel and some soap shavings, and this much here will burn for about 5 minutes. So in the bottom of the portable fire pit here, this will get a fire going pretty well. So I'll light this, I'll put some of the smaller stuff on, then I'll throw the leaves on top, and then some heavier stuff once all that's caught. This will work just fine. Here we go. Good little fire lighter that. As you're building the fire with all these smaller sticks, the kindling here, the fire needs a few things. It wants some fuel, it wants some air, and it wants some heat. So you don't want to smother this flame down. Just want to let it get going a little bit. With the smaller stuff, this is going to build a good coal base here. Get all these in there. And you can see there's plenty of air moving around it. I'll throw these leaves on there now, and that'll get going quite big. It'll almost look like it's a bit out of control initially, but all these things are going to help get some good heat. The heat's what we want. And as soon as that coal base is built, we'll be grateful for it later. Nice big warm flames, warm us up. It'll work exactly the same way in a fire pit that's in the ground versus the portable fire pits like this one here. Now that we've got a good flame going, we'll throw some of this wood in as well. I can hear some of those leaves are a bit damp still, which is a bit of a bloody shame. Not much we can do about that. The wet leaves, I thought I got it all. I thought it was all pretty bloody good. Not quite all of it though. But we'll leave that go. It'll catch well. I find that fires in the fire pit, it doesn't really matter what style of fire you do, whether a TP one or a log cabin one or a top down burn, it doesn't really matter because it's off the ground and the heat's fairly high anyway. But if you're doing this sort of a fire in the ground, you probably go with the log cabin one. The heat's a little bit better. If there's a few of you, I'd start with the TP sort of one because the heat is a bit higher with those sorts of fires. They just need a little bit more maintenance. But I find myself most of the time using the portable fire pit anyway because I can move it around. You can see that's already caught pretty well. That's going to be a good fire. This sort of wood here, this sort of size wood, this here will get this burning nice and quick. This is good for cooking on. So these will break down pretty quick, get a good bed of coals, and you'll be able to cook on that bed of coals a lot quicker than what you would if you were using lumps of wood like this. These are more for, well, before and after cooking. It'll get the fire going, keep the fire going all night. It's very easy to sit around the campfire once you're set up, but that inactivity is more than likely going to bite you in the bum, because if it's cold enough and you just sit there right there by the fire and don't move, your body's going to start going into a little bit of a preservation sort of state, and it's going to bring the warmth from your hands and your feet and the blood from your hands and your feet and bring it to the core to keep your core warm. But if you get up and move around, that's not the case. And that might sound a little bit counterintuitive, like to get up and move away from the fire, but maybe just get up and walk around the fire a little bit, move your hands around, move things around. Just get that little bit active, and it'll help move that blood around your body, keep you a little bit warm. All of that movement will absolutely help. Just going to collect firewood, all those sorts of things, it's going to help keep you motivated, keep you moving, and keep you warm. Just like a campfire, we all look forward to having a beer sitting right there next to the campfire. And one could definitely argue that the more beers we have, the less we feel the cold. But you're really going to regret that in the morning. If the hangover's not good enough, you're going to be feeling pretty lousy for being so bloody cold all night. And we've probably all heard stories about, Joe Blogs going out, getting absolutely blotto around the campfire, falling asleep over there on the ground, just passing out drunk fire going out overnight, and that sucker, before you know it, he's got hypothermia in the morning, and it's going to be a bad situation for everyone. So for some people, it's the campfire that they look forward to for camping. Some people, it's the beers around the campfire that they look forward to doing or to consuming. But for me, it's the cooking on the campfire that I absolutely love about coming out here and spending a couple of nights. And that cooking on the campfire, it achieves a couple of things. One, it keeps me nice and warm whilst I'm doing the cooking. And two, you've got a belly full of warm food before you go to bed. So your core is nice and warm before you go to bed. You're going to have a good night's sleep. But if you're one of those people who like to drive all day long and get to your campsite, and well and truly after dark, you may be tempted not to cook anything and just get into your swag or get into your tent or whatever and just go to sleep. I would encourage you not to do that, because although you've been driving in your vehicle all day, it's really cold outside, you've probably got the heater going, you get out here, you jump straight into bed, or you might eat something that's not cooked, your core temperature is going to start lowering straight away because you put cold food into you. So heat something up before you go to bed. When it comes to clothing for going out camping, everyone talks about it in every video about cold weather camping is layer, 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 layer. Right now I've got on 1, 2, 3 different layers under here, shirt, jumper, and the oilskin vest. I'm toasty warm. If I was to go up into the snow, I would use one of the jackets that I've got in the back of the vehicle. For us four-wheel drive campers, there's plenty of room in there to carry extra stuff, so use it. There are some must-have items when it comes to clothing for your camping trip. One is a good jacket. You have to have a good jacket, and don't get a jacket that you're going to go, I'm too bloody hot to wear anything else. Make sure you can layer still, but something that's going to cut the wind down like an oilskin, something that's going to insulate pretty well like an oilskin, and something that folds up reasonably small like an oilskin. A lot of the temperature that's in your body escapes through your head. So when the weather gets nice and cool, you'll often see me wearing a beanie on my head. And I can tell you right now, there's at least 2 in the vehicle all the time. Because if it rains and you get your beanie wet, I'll swap it out and dry the other one out. And that goes for most of the clothing that you wear. Just bring spare stuff. Regardless of all the clothing that you have and that you're going to bring, the 2 main important things is insulation and waterproof. Those 2 things are going to stop getting cold, getting wet, and getting windblown. You don't have to spend a lot of money to go out there and enjoy camping in the winter. What we've got behind me here is a lot of money invested into the setup that I've got, and I absolutely love it. But you don't have to have it, and you really don't need it. I do it because I just love it. You can go out to things like King's, Sanhema, those sorts of brands, get some really cool stuff that's going to keep you in the field, reasonably comfortable, and start building on your kit. You just don't need to spend a bucket load of money to be comfortable out here through the winter. And I really encourage you to do it. Get out here in the winter. I'm the only soul for, I don't know, bloody how far away. I've not seen anyone. As soon as I set foot in the bush, I've seen no one. Nobody comes out here and does it. I just don't get why. You can be comfortable and you can be alone. It's just fantastic. Catch you later.